morning, fancy meat computers. How's everybody? How's everybody? How is everybody doing? There we go. Sound check. Checkity check check. Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese. Cheese whiz. Cool. How's everybody today? Oh, I'm doing all right. Pretty good for a Friday. You know how it is. It's going to be a busy day today, but, you know, I don't really have non-busy days anymore, so that's how that goes. Yeah. It's, very cold and frosty this morning, which is kind of an interesting thing. It appears that most of the class is asleep. Well, wake up! Ding dong, it's class time. 1B03 be tiring. Yeah. Is that economics 1B03? What 1B03? There's a lot of people in this class. Let's see. So, I think with respect to announcements, there might be like one development, maybe. I don't know if an announcement was ever made about it. Probably should have been. But, so, yeah, there's quite a few. So, let's see. Technically this could have gone in the last one, but, you know, so it goes. Linear algebra, yes. To be fair, Econ 1B03 is also annoying. Yeah, well, you know. Linear algebra. Oh, the heady days. I actually liked linear algebra a lot better than calculus. Back in my day. Anyway. So, a couple of things. Y'all should have noticed that by now the Test 1 marks have been released. So, and further to that release of the test marks, we did... basically, we were getting some, you know, shall we say, constructive feedback from the students about the test cases. That we had like 6 test cases in one case that if you failed any one of them, you lost 2 marks. And it's like, if we split that up into separate test cases and, you know, give them, you know, 1/6 of 2 marks each, then the grading is somewhat more generous when it comes to part marks. So we actually, we put that together, we configured it in that fashion, and it turned out that that raised the grade point average of the entire class by about 5 points. So that was cool. A typo on question 6 of assignment 7, so yeah. Mark has posted a test review survey, so if any of you are interested in having your feedback heard about the test, or, you know, general comments about how the course is going so far, then please fill out that survey. As the assignment 5 marks have been released, so if you're interested in that, then, which I hope you should be, you can take a look now. Also, happy Diwali. Yay! So, that's good. Let's see. Can I take a look? Can I take a sneaky peek at the grade point averages for some of these things? Can you have dictionaries as values of dictionaries? Yes, sir. Yes, you can. Can I ask what your office hours is? I couldn't find it in the course outline. So 1:30 to 3:30 in ITB 102 on Thursdays. Hypothetically, I also am online during that time, so I can, you can contact me for like a Teams meeting, which you can technically do anytime, but I'm much more likely to actually give you one on Thursday or try to, shunt you towards Thursday. So, because, schedules and whatnot. But yeah, it's, yeah. It should be on the course outline. Let me take a look here. Let me take a look-see. All right. So, we've got, without zero adjustment, the class average is 70.64%, which is actually pretty good. Let's see. 26 users got a big fat goose egg. So, if we've got, you just got to do a little bit of math to get the zero adjusted grade point average. Calculator. So, we take 70.64 divide by, multiply by, there we go, 232 recorded grades, there we go, and then we divide by 232 minus the 26, there we go. So the adjusted grade point average is actually 79.55. 5728155. So that's actually, like, I'm quite pleased with that, actually. As grades go on midterms, especially a midterm this late in the course, that's actually a really good average. So, well done, everybody. And some of you may have noticed that the test was not exactly easy, so I think that's a fantastic result. Did those people actually get zero, or did they drop and still appear enrolled? Well, yeah, no, it's some of it is column A, some of it is column B. Where column B is, unfortunately, we had to give out a few zeros due to some. Well, there are some outstanding, shall we say, academic dishonesty investigations that are going on related to Test 1. So, with respect to those, we sort of hold those at zero until the outcome of the academic dishonesty investigation has been processed. But, and it looks like we're having a very similar, it looks like everybody did pretty well on assignment 5, so. Average, even without the zero adjusting, is in the 79.85% range, so I'm cool with that. It occurred to me that some of you might need to have your expectations adjusted for what grades look like in university. So, because, it's sort of been an open secret about the high school system for some time that, it's been easier and easier to get good marks in high school. So this is how I view grades, and since I'm the guy who's teaching, this does hold some weight. Anything above an 80 is exceeding expectations, right? So that's A territory. A exceeds expectations. Anything above a 90 is like, man, you're breezing through this course type territory, right? From 70 to 80, that's like you're meeting my expectations for this course, right? So if you're in that range, you don't have to worry too much, I don't think. Like, you're getting enough of the concepts that you won't have too much trouble with, the next courses that you take. 60 to 70. That's like C range. And I would say you should probably examine studying a little bit more some of the concepts, because clearly there are some concepts which you need to pick up a little bit more if you want to get into, the meeting expectations range. So it's like, pull up your socks. If you're from a 50 to a 60, it's like, be very careful. That's actually, like, technically speaking, like, if in the engineering program, if you have a grade point average in that range, they actually put you, they suspend you on, well, they put you on some sort of academic suspension. You have to keep your grade point average above a 60 in the engineering program. And I know this isn't the engineering program, but, 50 to 60, it's like, be very careful, right? Make sure that you're giving this class your priority. Obviously anything less than a 50 is failure, and you need to probably retake, you need to completely redo the course, or that section of the course that you failed on before the exam, preferably. Have I ever had a year without cheating? Yeah, last year there was no cheating. Like, we were checking pretty hard too, and I think what happened was last year at the University of Waterloo, they like flunked. They just completely kicked out like 30 people for academic dishonesty, for like using Discord within like the first 3 weeks of class. And that just, I think, that sent shockwaves throughout the whole system. People like, oh shit, I better not cheat. But this year, it's been a lot of cheating relative to the amount that we usually have. Like, pretty much every assignment that we take a look at has, like, between 12 and 17 hits. And, a lot of those are repeats, so it's not like 17 new people cheat per assignment, but, there's enough new people each time that it's not great. And they're all getting official citations, so don't cheat. So what is considered an excellent grade for a job application? You would have to talk to the employer about that. My general impression is that employers don't really care that much about your grades. But then again, you'd have to talk to the employer. Don't we also have to keep it above a 60? I don't know. I don't know if the CompSci program shares that feature. I know that's true of accredited engineering programs, and CompSci is not an accredited engineering program. But yeah. When is the exam schedule? Yes, you'll find it in the course syllabus. It was not posted because I'm doing like the exam the same way as we had that test. I couldn't schedule it with the registrar, so it's in the course outline. Yeah. Yeah, 21st of December. I've got like one on the 21st and the 22nd, so I can never keep track which class is which, but yeah, it's one of those dates. Is there any documentation on Moss? I'm really interested to know how it works. I think there's a GitHub project. If you Google for it, I think there's a GitHub project where it's like, I'm going to try to break Moss and post my results. And basically, the guy who does this project comes to the conclusion that in order to break Moss, it's like you have to do more work than anything you would have been required to do on an assignment in order to break the plagiarism checker. Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing about the engineering program is, like, pretty much every course you take is required. Like, you get very, very few electives. Like, 2 in first year and 2 in fourth year, and that's the number of electives you get. At least that's how it was when I took it, but Yeah, you comp sci guys, you get all kinds of electives. Mm. Yeah. All right, so we should continue with our lecture material. I don't know. Ask the undergraduate calendar how many electives you get. I can't. Don't ask me. I'm not in the comp sci program. How do you know you've been called out for plagiarism? How are you informed? Through email? Yes, you get informed. You get a letter via email. If you haven't gotten a letter, then don't worry, you haven't cheated. Mm. Yeah. So, all right. So let's continue on then. We were talking about classes. We were talking about how you can use a class to enforce data policy. So we've got this set of dictionaries, right? And it would be useful to have some way of standardizing the encoding, right? Because it's all well and good to have, sets of dictionaries where it's consistently having the same tags, but it might be more useful to formalize this understanding so that the computer itself can check to see if you're doing things correctly. It's always useful to have the computer check things to see if you're doing them correctly. There we go. So, bop, beat up. There we go. So, if we want to make a class to contain this data, we create class person, inherits from nothing. We don't need to inherit it from anything in this case. In Python, the way that classes work is, well, there are several ways you can do it, but the way that we're recommending in this class is to start off with an initializer. So init, this, for all of you programming buffs out there, this is what your constructor looks like. Oop. D, there we go. So Python's kind of weird. Every method inside of a Python class has to take self as the first argument. That's a reference to the instance of the object on which the method is being called. Don't worry if you don't understand that. We'll get there. So, initialize with nothing, and we'll say we want a name. Self.name is equal to empty string. Self.children is equal to empty list. And self.spruce is equal to none. So these are initialization values. Self instead of this, got to get used to that. Oh boy, are there some things you got to get used to. Okay, I have a meme that I have to show you now, because I personally absolutely hate the way that Python does it. The way that Python does classes. Here it is. There you go. It's terrible, but anyway, we have to learn it anyway. So this is how you would create a person object or a person class that you can then instantiate. Does the function have to be called init? Yes. It has to be called init if it's the initializer. So the way that you use this, so there's a big distinction here. When you define stuff here, that's a class. But as soon as you create one of these, that's an object. So an object is an instantiation of a class. In the same way that, what you know about a list conceptually is different from the actual list that you're working on, the class definition is different from the object that you work on. So, for example, if I could, if I made one like one punch is equal to new person, one punch dot name is equal to Saitama. I think I'm spelling that correct. One punch dot children is equal to none. One punch dot spouse is equal to I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? So, you can set the individual fields inside of the class using what's known as dot notation. Krish says, technically classes in Python are automatically classes in C, though. Well, C doesn't have classes. I forgot the N. Did I? This might not compile. Oh my goodness. Bop. I always forget to... That's 1xC3. What the heck am I doing? There you go. Examples. There we go. Python 3 topic 8.py. Oh, what? Save. There we go. Right, so it doesn't actually print anything, but if we were to print like one punch dot name, you would get. So you can see that the data is in fact being stored inside of this object. Do I define Saitama's children? Do I have to define the children if it's an empty list? No. The whole point of an empty list is to say that there are no objects of this field, right? There are none. You could also say none because it's Python, but you know. I don't get why Python is C-based, but the classes are not like C++. Yeah, right? What if I just print one punch without the name? Good question. That's actually an excellent question. You get class main.person. So it gives you what the type is. Which is not very useful. We're going to see how to make that more useful as we go on. But so there are certain key advantages to to doing it this way versus doing it with just a bunch of dictionaries, right? Number one, dictionaries are more fiddly because you have to include the square braces and you have to include the quotation marks, so that's 4 characters, whereas dot notation is just 1 character. So it's faster to use, it's faster to type. But also, the whole point of having a convention is that the convention is consistently applied, right? So, we want every person to have these 3 keys. So if we do a dictionary and we misspell one of them, we end up with the wrong key, which means that if we're trying to search these dictionaries using known keys, it won't work because you'll end up with a key error, key not found, because you misspelled it, and that's generally speaking the type of situation you want to avoid. So. Another question. Why do you need the double underscore? We'll get to it. Hold that question. We'll get to it. So, what if I forget a key in a person's dictionary? Functions that expect certain keys might fail if the key is not present. We also can't use type X or isInstance X to distinguish between dictionaries that represent people and dictionaries for other purposes. So, if you use type or isInstance to figure things out in Python, which is probably good because Python is just loose with everything. It doesn't work if it's a dictionary. It'll just tell you this is a dictionary, right? But if you put it in a class, you get more useful information out of it. is one punch an object of the person class or of the person object. It's an object of, pardon me, it's an object of the person class. So this is the person class. This is an object of that class, right? This is not an object because it doesn't have any concrete values. It hasn't been instantiated yet. It's like a ghost. It doesn't exist until it inhabits the soul of a living creature. In which case, this would be the process of it inhabiting the soul of a living creature. So, yes. So, essentially, what we're doing with it here, we're actually using classes in Python in pretty much the same way that we will use structures in C. We're just grouping a few variables together and referring to them consistently. The big difference between structures in C and classes in anything else is that classes can also be bundled with operations, not just data. So, custom data types are called classes. Yeah. Every class is built from an existing data type. That's true. So all of the things in here have to already exist before you declare them inside of the class. Although you can declare other things of other classes in here, so you can have these things nested arbitrarily deep. So another good way to think about this is it's a template, right? You are instantiating the template to create an object of that class. So the template will tell itself how it should be initialized and what operations you can perform with it. We can also, and the instances of a class are called objects. So there we go. That's CodeOVision. I think my example is more interesting to kids these days, but anyway. So, defining a new class, you need this line for the syntax, and then it's always, for every class that you make in this class, so to speak, you're going to need an initializer. So you always need to also include this function, which is a method because it's inside of a class. Yes. So we can, so you may notice one difference between this guy and what I was doing here is that I actually left this blank, whereas here they've got object, right? Object is the most general thing in Python. You can't make a class without it inheriting from object. So it's kind of like specifying object here is like just extra typing. You don't actually have to do it, but it's there by default anytime you instantiate a new class anyway. So, yeah. So, yes. Yes. Init two underscores on either side is a special function called an initializer. It is called whenever we try to make a new instance of the class. Very good. So, this line here creates a new object with this using this class as a template, right? This here is known as the initialization, right? This method here, or it's not a method, you call the class name as if it were a function. That automatically fires up the initializer, right? So all of this code runs as a result of instantiating the class, right? So if I were to put something like print initialization complete, you can see initialization complete operates when this gets called. If I do two punch, then I get 2 initializations, because the initializer function was run twice, once for each object. Okay? So, inside of the initializer, we can define instance variables that are associated with each instance of the class. So Python prefers to call these attributes. That's Python nomenclature. If you're in a C++ environment, they are known as member variables. I'm not sure what they call them in Java. So, question. We can give the var values as arguments to the person, right? Well, yes. So, I'll show you how to do arguments very quickly. Are the brackets needed around person when defining Harry? Like here on the slide. Like here? Like these brackets here at the end? Technically, you don't need them because you're not passing any arguments to person. It'll work if you omit them. But it's always good practice to put them in. Yeah. So, if you were to... So let's say we wanted to make it so that the initializer function required that you provide a name to the person before you create the object, right? So we could give it a new argument, call it n, and instead of just providing like a default value, we can put n here, right? So what that means is that you now have the ability to provide the name as an argument to the initialization procedure. And onepunch.name will just verify that this works. No, not Jupyter Notebook. There we go. Init, one positional requirement missing, and what? Oh, here. Who cares? There we go. So you can see that it's still getting stored, right? We're printing onepunch.name. This guy gets taken in, put as an argument here, and then copied into this relevant attribute of the class, and we can retrieve it later. Good. So, different instances of the same class will have independent instance variables. Very important to know. This makes a lot of sense. Just like, when you have two lists, their data doesn't mix unless you require it to, right? In that way, like TwoPunch here stores its data separately from OnePunch, right? Separate but equal. We can also add functions to the class itself. These are called methods or member functions. So notice we now have a nifty little function here, which just returns a Boolean value whether or not the person is married. So you can actually do lots of these. So, like, for example, def has children, self, because we don't need to know anything else. Return self.children, or length of self.children is greater than 1, greater than or equal to 1. There we go. And there you go. Has children. So this will return like a true if there are children in the list, and a false otherwise. Can you define or call functions with a class to perform specific operations on a given class? Yes, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. So, like, for example, print Saitama has children. And then print has, then print One Punch dot has children. And see how that works. Saitama has children. False. However, if we give him a child, like, for example, Moon Man. Now he does have children. So there you go. Ta-da! And this is how you access methods of an instantiated object, right? Again, there are a couple of ways of going about this, but this is good enough. You know, like, for most purposes, this will be how you do it. So, let's continue. Everything in Python is an object. Every object is an instance of a class. So, even numbers, functions, objects, all of them, they are all they're all instantiations of one class or another. The class definitions define attributes, properties / variables / members and methods that are common to all instances of the class. Attributes of a class or an object are referenced using the dot notation. Question. In the person class, is init a constructor and the other function was a method? Correct! You have correctly identified the nomenclature. Yes. Although init is a constructor method. So init is still a method, right? But it's a special one that we called the constructor because it constructs the class into an object. It's like it takes the blueprints and it builds a building with it. The whole language is built using OOP, but it has weird OOP. That is true. Yeah, like... Don't even get me started. So, okay. Okay, here we go. I'm about to have a 2-minute rant about why Python is terrible, so buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. So you know how I said it's important to enforce data policies, and that putting something in a class is a way of enforcing a data policy, and if you misspell the name of something in a dictionary, then, you know, Python will, like you'll get an error or something if it's a class instead? Guess what? I was lying. That's not actually... That's true in every friggin' other language, but friggin' Python, what Python does is it's like, oh, I guess you wanted to just create a new attribute with a misspelled name. So you end up, like, if you have name, and then you also spell it with a U, so nume, you would have both attributes in the class. Like, I can show you how this works. It's so friggin' annoying that you can initialize attributes in a class from outside of the class with no consequences. It's so stupid. It's... Ooh! Ooh, it makes me mad. It just makes me mad. Ooh! So, like, One Punch dot noom is equal to wrong value, right? See? You see that? You see that? Friggin' Python, man. Oh. What happens if you try to call the initialization function directly? Good question. It probably creates the object and then loses the reference to it. Right? Everybody who knows programming is like, what the heck, man? But yeah. So, yeah, if you were to just, like, create a, like person Nick. Why not? You can see we now have 3 initializations, but the reference to it hasn't been stored by assignment, so it's just kind of like, it goes. If I don't like Python, teaching this course must be a nightmare, lol. Most of the time, I like to just pretend that I'm teaching a better language. You... You may have noticed that a lot of the time I like to pretend I'm teaching you, like, C++ or something, and, like, whenever Python is doing Python stuff, I'm like, ooh, Python! Is there a way to print all of the current attributes of an object? I think it's, like... It's in the documentation. I think it might be, like... class.attributes or something like that. You can, I'm pretty sure there's like a method that'll give you an attribute list and like a method list. I'm pretty sure that exists. But yeah. So yeah. So where am I? Where were we? Yes. So here's another example. Why is Python the most used language if it's this flawed then? The readability? Okay, do you know what an Ouroboros is? It's a snake or a dragon that's eating its tail. That's what Python is, because, like, Python is the most used language because it's the most used language. Like, it's taught at a very early age. Like, it's normally the first, like, it's sort of there's this coalesced, this congealed opinion that Python is the easiest language to teach, so everybody teaches Python to begin with. And, like, to be fair to Python, at a high level, Python is as good as any other language, as long as you know about its tricks, right? So, like, when people will tend to stick with the language they know if it's good enough. So that's why Python has become very popular, because it's supposed to be easy. But there are much better languages if you want to enforce data policy. Object.dict. Yeah, probably that would do. Can you loop through the attributes of a class like dictionary? You can if you, like, there is a special property of things like dictionaries called iterable. If you set what iterable means for your class, then yes. But otherwise, no. For loops don't work automatically over them. So, here is the point class. So, class point. This is just a point in Euclidean. This is just a 2-dimensional point in Euclidean space, so everything is fine in it. So this takes self, x naught, and y naught. So it takes its initial coordinates. Self.x is equal to x naught. Self.y is equal to y naught. 37th thing that annoys me about Python: you have to include self-dot before each and every single variable name when you're inside of a class. Def move self dx dy. So this is just a simple translation. Self.x is equal to, or plus equals, dx. Self.y plus equals dy. Def scale. So you see you can have as many of these as you want, right? Scale. Self and s. Self.x times equals s. There you go. That's just like scaling it relative to the origin. And distance. Distance between self and other is just a simple, very simple what's it called? Pythagorean theorem. So, interesting thing about classes, right? By tagging variables as self, you're making them relative to the entire class. If you don't, they're only local to the method, right? So I could say, like x1 is equal to other.x minus self.x times 2, or to the power of 2. Y1 is equal to other.y minus self.y to the power of 2. And then I could return x1 plus y1 square root. x1 and y1 in this context do not exist outside of the distance method. So it's local to the distance method. So if you wanted to use like previously calculated values of x1 and y1, like in move, for example, you wouldn't be able to currently. All you would have to do, though, is you would is just put self dot in front of either of these, and just do it consistently within that method, and that like pops it out into the frame of the class. And again, because this is Python, you don't actually have to initialize all of your class-wide variables in the actual constructor. You don't have to do that, but it's recommended. It's recommended to program in Python as if you were programming in C++. God, I hate Python. Okay, I don't hate Python, like real talk for a minute. I don't hate Python. It's just like I play it up for the comedy a little bit sometimes, but like there are things about Python that annoy me. But there are things about every language that annoys you with, every language has its little annoying features. But so what is other here? That's a good question. So the naming convention is when you have an operation over two objects of the same class, you name them self and other. So self is whatever instance of whatever object this method gets called on, and other is another point that you would provide. So let's try time to make Nick++. Well, if you take 3MI3 with me when you hit third year, then you'll learn exactly how to understand the mathematics of programming language construction. So you totally could make a new language called Nick++. But you should probably name it after yourself because, in science, people get to name things after themselves. So, point 34.17 print. Oh, I gotta. So we'll call A 34 and B 17. So A dot distance B. And you can see that the distance between those 2 points is 3.60555. And that makes, that's relatively, that's relatively straightforward. So how does other have an X attribute? Because you used it to have an X attribute. Welcome again to how Python is terrible. So if we were using a language that used types, like type annotations, you would have something like, this is a point, other is also a point. So it's like, other would be another object of the point class. So it would have all of the attributes of an object of the point class, including X. This is actually, I think, still valid Python syntax, actually. Yeah, it is. So this is what's called a type annotation. Their primary, the primary use of type annotations in Python is documentation. They're not binding, which is extremely annoying to someone who loves a good type system. But yeah, you can actually specify the types here using colon and then the name of the type, but Python, like, you can override that just by, like, writing your program, so it's not binding. In which case, why is it even there? Primarily documentation. So in this case, self is 3.4 and other is 1.7. Correct! Looks like Haskell now. Yeah, well, Haskell is an excellent programming language because it has a very good type system. I know you, like, I hope that you guys will eventually come to appreciate Haskell for its true beauty. But it's telling me name point is not defined. Well, do you have the class? Did you misspell it? So if other had any other name, then it wouldn't be an object of person. Other had any other name. Well, no, actually, that's only by convention. Like, I could name it, like, something stupid like butts. I could name it that. I totally could. It doesn't matter. As long as I use it consistently. Point is not defined. What? Ah. Strange. Maybe I don't know how to do type annotations. Anyway. So, get it? Really? Point doesn't exist? It totally does. Very strange. What? Oh my god. Like, main dot point? For God's sake. Never mind about the type annotations, then. You can totally do it, like, with int and stuff like that, but it's not working for some reason, and I don't care to figure out why. But anyway, so yeah, it's only called other by convention, but then again, that same is also true of self. Like, you could name it, you know, anything else. And as long as you use it consistently, everything works out. You know? I don't think you can use point within the class of point. Of course! Of course there would be a restriction like that. Why wouldn't there be? Could you show us a couple more examples of using the point class? Yeah, we're out of... You have to import annotations from What? Okay, thank you. See if that works. It would be from annotations, import annotations. Yeah, I got it. Module not found. How about just import annotations? Have I spelled it? Annotations. There we go. Yeah, you know what? Whatever. I don't care. I've lost all energy for that. I'll do a few more examples with point. So, if you want to do like a dot move. So yeah, let's say a dot move. We'll move it, you know, 5, -6, right? Then print a dot x, print a dot y, print a dot distance b. So there we go. So if we start off with 3, 4, and we move it 5, -6, we end up with 8, -2, as you would expect, and the distance increases because we're moving it further away. Nick, read chat. Oh, sorry. from future import and... Yeah. You know what? I think there's only so much code that I'm going to do because I don't want anybody to like destroy my system. But really, like it doesn't make sense to me that like Python would require you to import a library in order to do friggin' type annotations. Oh my God. All right, I'm gonna look it up. And if you're right, I will tip my hat to you. So, it's going to be standard in the next... Yeah. What version am I? That's a good question, actually. 3.8.10. Am I on too crusty a version of Python for annotation, for type hints to work? They don't even call them annotations. They call them hints. And it's like... They're called annotations. I don't know. Anyway, are there any other questions about anything we did today? If not, I might just get out of here. Does it work with int? It works if it works with int. It's just so the annotation itself is there, the capacity to annotate. It just doesn't like point. Could I explain one more time in distance? Yeah. So yeah. So this is how it works, right? I'm just gonna. So what is normally called self, right? That gets bound to whatever this guy is. The second one gets bound to whatever's provided in the brackets. So, because this is Python, we have duck typing. So the way that we use it is the way that it is. So if we use it like it has an X and a Y field, then it will, you know, it'll behave correctly so long as we provide it the correct object. But yeah. I think it was 3.9 that had built-in annotation, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. Do you have any tips for converting without the built-in conversions? I'm a little lost on that. Converting without the built-in conversions. Like, are you guys... This would be... the assignment you're working on would be the one with... the... Yeah, right? The numerical computation material, right? So there are a couple of slides that are, like, at the beginning of that block of material that, like, illustrate the process. And all you have to do is encode it as an algorithm and change, like, what the bases are. Yeah. Ah, yes. Meme Magic Part 2. Don't worry, guys. It's coming. Been really swamped with work, probably. Like all y'all. Yeah. Oh my god, Ryan. Ryan, don't leave us hanging. Yeah. Yeah, it's like right at the beginning of that slide set, you'll find the formulas you need. You just need to, like, if you can, like, take, you know, if you can take it for binary and, like, think your way through to, okay, so same procedure, but I'm doing it with octal, like, that's all you need to do. Actually, assignment 6 shouldn't be that difficult if you know, like, it, if you know, like, unlike some of the other ones, assignment 6 is very focused on the material that is presented in the lecture slides, so. Yes. Quality over quantity. That's true. Watch Mark's online tutorial from last Friday. Yeah. Yeah, watch Mark's online tutorials. That's another one. Another good one. Yep. Are we allowed to use fvar? I don't know what that does. Let's see. Oh, string formatting? No, please do it, like, algorithmically. Good God. Should we be implementing all of the exception stuff now? You don't have to worry about it. Like, when you get to the assignment that asks for exceptions, you'll know. Because it'll ask for them now. Because we had the, if you remember, the assignments got, like, I think the assignments got, like, pushed back a week or something in this class. I forget, but, like, yeah, it's like we're working, like, 2 lectures behind, like, on the assignments. But, yeah. If you don't mind, could you go over exactly what functions aren't allowed? You should ask the TAs, because they know better than I do. Ask Mark or David. If you have any question about whether or not we permit one thing or another, just post to Piazza and you'll get an answer very quickly. Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to log off here. Thank you very much for your time and attention, folks, and we'll see you in the next one. That's a terrible sign-off. That's a terrible catchphrase, B-boy. All right. See you, folks. Yeah. Have a nice weekend.